Bruh, what was so wrong with the red library card?
Hello from Hawaii.
So recently, the Hawaii State Public Library System rebranded and came out with a new logo and a new library card. And as an avid user of the public library system over the years, my initial reaction was, what? They wouldn't change them to that. Now, admittedly, not a good first impression. But after some thought and reflection, yeah, I still am not a fan of the rebrand. And I want to share some of the reasons why. While this video may sound critical, I just want to say that I support the public library system here in Hawaii. Been using it for years, and frankly, if I didn't care, I wouldn't talk about this. When it comes to why I don't like the new Hawaii library card and design, it's really about three things. The first is the overall design and the new layout of the library card. The new design is supposed to be the letter H with a geometric pattern inspired by kapa and other traditional Hawaiian art. Now the blue represents the statewide system, while each of the individual triangles and corresponding colors represents the individual islands where there are public library branches, minus Kaho'olawe and Ni'ihau. And frankly, I don't think Kaho'olawe is getting a library anytime soon. And of course, any criticism of an abstract work is highly subjective. But I just don't like it. I think it's too abstract. And perhaps it's something that I just don't get. But the image itself doesn't seem to be very balanced because the left side is solid blue while the right side is broken up and it has a lot of negative space. And so to me that lacks some balance, particularly on the bottom area of the logo. And as my eyes scan the design left to right, I'm supposed to understand that white equals negative space. But the problem with that is as I move to the right column, there's a whole bunch of negative space. So am I supposed to just imagine that all of that white is supposed to be a puka? And so instead of seeing the letter H with the traditional 2 columns, what my eyes are seeing is actually 4 columns. And I think at that point it loses any relation to Hawaii or local culture. But that's just a logo. Maybe it's just one of those things that over time I'll get used to. However, something that my eyes won't be able to get used to is the layout of the card, because as of the current design, the text Hawaii State Public Library System is actually perpendicular to the design. And for me, that makes it even more confusing because as a user, how am I supposed to hold this card or view the card? Now, traditionally, these credit card type cards are supposed to be held horizontally. But if you do that, the logo is facing the correct way with the letter H, but now the text is kind of crooked. And if you hold the card vertically, where you can actually read the text, well, now the letter H is on its side, and it makes the design very confusing. In fact, when I first saw the design on the card, I was confused because I'm reading it with the text facing me so I can read the actual text. But the problem is now the design doesn't look like a letter H. In fact, it looks like one of those dialogue boxes from like a comic strip. And I was wondering to myself, okay, what is this pink triangle trying to say? But frankly, I think either orientation of the new library card is fine, although I would prefer the horizontal, which is the traditional layout. But if they do that, I hope that they turn the font and make it a little bit smaller so that it all reads nicely. Now, say what you will about AI, but I asked it to actually create 3 new designs, and here's what I came up with. And frankly, I'm a big fan of the green one with the tree. I mean, bruh, that's one throwback to way back when the library cards, they used to be green. You remember that? Now the next thing I want to mention is where the design came from, because that was my second thought. Bruh, no way one local person would make that. And yes, in fact, it was outsourced to a consulting firm in Charlotte, North Carolina for a contract of just over $175,000. And it wasn't so much the $175,000 cost of this rebrand, although I will admit that's kind of a lot of money for some triangles and geometric shapes. But the fact that a local consulting company, graphic design company, did not win the bid for this request. Now, this isn't to say that we only have to use local companies and that companies outside, like on the mainland, they would just never get it. But I'm just surprised that for something like this, they would outsource it to out of state. Because when it comes to supporting local, we're thinking typically about poke shops or that retail store. But I also think about those professional services that local people, many of whom are downtown over here, they're doing these services. And how often do they get to do local contracts for the state and the city? Particularly something as personal and maybe even meaningful as the design for our library system. Now, I can't even pretend to begin to understand the state procurement system and how all of that contract awarding works, but I would think in the entire state, there's gotta be at least one firm that could do this for $175,000. I mean, come on. And lastly, I gotta ask, do we even need this rebranding? Do our public libraries need that? What will the effect be? How will those effects be measured? Now, personally, I don't feel like the rebrand was necessary, but I defer to the administration and their goals and vision and the things that they want to do. But I am reminded of rebranding efforts by the Hawaii Museum of Art and the Hawaii State Art Museum. In 2013, the Honolulu Academy of Arts was renamed the Honolulu Museum of Art. And in 2019, they rebranded with a new logo, which frankly has left me confused. I still don't get it. I mean, has that rebranding had any effect on attendance? But you know what does? Those free family Sundays, bruh. We gonna be there. And in 2023, the Hawaii State Art Museum underwent a radical change. And now they're called the Capitol Modern. And as Denby Fawcett of Civil Beat noted, there's no mention of Hawaii or museum or art, which granted are not necessary for a place to be classified as a museum, but you know, small kind confusing. But since rebranding, how has that affected attendance? Because to be honest, I think when Artisan left, which is a restaurant that used to be on the first floor, when they went gone, I think they saw a huge drop of people coming by. And I get it. Rebranding is really hard to measure, and oftentimes it has long-term effects. So any type of gauging on how effective a new name or a new image in the short term, it's gonna be maybe not as easy to spot. But in a place like Hawaii, where CVS dare not change the name of Long's to CVS, you do have to wonder how local people feel about making certain name changes. I'm not sure how many people use the library today. I'm sure numbers are down as technology has allowed everyday people to access resources and entertainment at home. And I even wonder if my kids are gonna use the library as much as my dad did growing up and me. But I'll always believe that there's a place for libraries, and I am glad that we have them. And yes, it's more than just a place to get free AC or go use the bathroom or go use the computer if you got to. It's a place to learn. It's a place for families and kids to touch and feel and enjoy books and other entertainment. I just wish that before we do any type of rebranding, any type of marketing, that we support the staff who work at the libraries, because it's the staff who make people want to come back. I mean, we used to go Kanye Library so much that the staff all knew who my dad was, and they would keep his books off to the side because they knew, oh, he's gonna come pick up his books today. And when I'm talking about supporting staff, I'm really talking about helping them to deal with some of the homeless, because boy, I'm sure they could tell you stories. Public libraries, being public by nature, should be open to everyone. But occasionally, maybe even often, a lot of homeless tend to go to the library, like this one here. And I can't even imagine where you have to work in that type of environment. Now, some people who are homeless that go to the library, I'm sure they just keep to themselves and they don't bother anybody. But you're always gonna have those people that, let's just say, make your job a little bit harder. So I say, let's make sure that we support those staff, that we make this place a nice place to work and also a place to visit for the public. So let me know what you think about the new library logo design in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and aloha.
Hello